Yuta Akotsu has finally arrived on the battlefield of Shinjuku. In chapter 249, this was a much needed change of tone as far as the sorcerer's strengths go. They finally have their insurance plan Yuta in action in order to deal with Sukuna. And this is actually a huge development. Some might have downplayed Yuta just for jokes, just for agendas, just because. However, we should not underestimate Yuta's importance to the sorcerer's overall power, because Yuta is undoubtedly one of the most, if not the most powerful Jujutsu sorcerer that our team has to offer. Once Yuta showed up, it was like our cast finally have a shot. And based on what this chapter conveys and showed us, Yuta plans on ending things here and now. So get ready, my brothers and sisters, because this fight just entered the next level. In this chapter, it actually opens up with an interesting bit where it goes back to when Yuta kills Kenjaku in the Goshoko colony. And Kenjaku proclaims that his will be inherited. Naturally, when a cursed spirit manipulator dies and loses control, the cursed spirits that were harvested sprawl out of control and Geto's body has now died. So now thousands of spirits that Kenjaku has harvested have rampaged. And it's hinted that this can be on the same level as in Shibuya. In that event, over 10 million spirits could have been released, and even Yuki and the rest of the sorcerers could not stop it. Yet Yuta points out that Rika's power was necessary to stop the cursed spirit manipulation rampage. And this is one reason why Toji did not kill Geto in the hidden inventory arc, and also why Maki was not sent to kill Kenjaku. Given the scale of his curses, it would just be too much that could lead to more civilians getting hurt. So Yuta and Rika's combined power were necessary to stop that kind of event. Surprisingly, Kenjaku prepared for this, and he added rule number 15, allowing Megami/Sukuna instead to start the merger of humankind and Tengen. Kenjaku already had a ritual of succession with Sukuna, and he made a way for the merging to be done through the Colon Games as a foundation. So Tengen was processed almost like a cursed womb, and it was sent directly to Sukuna. So this is the Tengen that Sukuna ate in order for him to enact the merger. Finally though, Yuta kills Kenjaku by stabbing him through the head, and Kenjaku basically leaves it up to them as to what happens next. Now I think it's basically confirmed that Kenjaku is dead. Even though he seems very zombie-like you just can't kill Kenjaku, he left everything to Sukuna and he says his goodbyes. It's not the most satisfying conclusion, especially given his wacky fight with Takaba and getting one shot by Yuta. He had no interactions with Yuji and no really cinematic flashback or afterlife. However, his will still lives on, and Yuta has set out to do exactly what he promised. Yuta is the one to kill Kenjaku with his own hands. Now, back in real time, we've at last made it to Yuta versus Sukuna, and the very first thing Yuta notices is how Sukuna's reverse curse technique output is starting to recover. So soon, it's only a matter of time before Sukuna can use his actual domain expansion again. And reading this, I appreciate that at the very least, Gojo was able to do that much, and this gives the sorcerers a much better shot to actually take down Sukuna. But to make matters worse, given the circumstances, Yuta blames himself for just not being here for the first plan, and how Haguruma has now been killed. Yuta takes all the blame for this situation, and this kind of motivates him to take action now in the moment that he's in. Yuta finally rushes in, and interestingly, he uses Rika like a shadow to try and stab Sukuna and block his vision. Of course, Sukuna catches the sword, but what's interesting is that he uses his slashes in a way that covers his hands like a chainsaw, so it's like a bunch of tiny dismantles around his arm. I think this goes to show how unique Sukuna can be with his slashes, but also Yuta was probably able to clash multiple times with this curse technique. It's like Sukuna has an invisible sword of his own, and Yuta is really just incredible if that's the case. When Sukuna caught the blade, Yuta tag teams with Rika, and he gets decent hits punching Sukuna square in his stomach jaw. And then Yuta and Rika continue to keep up the pressure. Sukuna might actually enjoy himself this time. Yuta dodges a net of slashes. He continues to clash with Sukuna's blades, and he thinks to himself, this is all my fault. So he has to take care of this now. And finally, Yuta wastes no time and unleashes a domain expansion. But hold on, wait a second. Yuta just took out this ring just now, and he decided to use all of his power, meaning that this was base Yuta and a half manifested Rika clashing with Sukuna. I understand this Sukuna is pretty playful right now, but when is he not? Ever since attaining this form, all Sukuna has been is playful. Kashimo could not touch him, Higuruma couldn't touch him, Ino, Kusakabe, Chozo basically did nothing, and Yuji did a little bit to shake Sukuna up for a moment, but now Yuta Okotsu is actually applying real pressure to Sukuna, and it only gets better from here. Yuta's domain expansion is called All-Encompassing Unequivocal Love, or True Mutual Love, which the setting is based on a real Awaji Musubi pattern knot on the gift envelope for wedding ceremonies. It symbolizes inseparable eternal ties between the wedding couple, and I guess you can say it's like tying the knot, so to speak. However, what a deceptive name for how devastating its abilities actually are. This is by far one of the coolest and visually appealing domain expansions in the series, and it looks like something from the Fate series like Unlimited Blade Works or Ichigo's Bankai training from Bleach. It's just really a cool setting to be as an manga character. However, first and foremost, as soon as the domain activated, Sukuna took no chances and uses Hollow Wicker Basket, which is basically like the original version of New Shadow Style Simple Domain, so it can cancel out the sure hit effect of a domain expansion. It's actually fitting Sukuna would have this considering it was developed in his era, and stuff like simple domains do not affect the part of the brain related to barrier usage because really they are not barrier techniques. But things get pretty serious as Yuta rushes in, picking up one of the many swords scattered around the area, and uses Uro's thin icebreaker technique to his sword strike. And Yuta is actually the first to make this Sukuna bleed and scorches half of his face. Thin icebreaker is probably an attack that you can't really block, so it's really cool to see that it's effective against Sukuna. Sukuna deduces that Yuta's domain expansion must be their next big plan that they cooked up. From his memories of Megami, he figured out Yuta can copy curse techniques, and this domain's sure hit is forcing Sukuna to continue to use Hollow Wicker Basket, which apparently restricts Sukuna from using half of his arms and mouths, so he likely can't use any cursed energy enhancements or chants as easily. And what's more, the sure hit of this domain probably is Angel's curse technique, and this particular power is a hard counter versus Sukuna and incarnated sorcerers since it can exorcise them or strip them from their bodies, killing them. Not to mention her curse technique can extinguish any other curse techniques. This domain also gives Yuta complete free access to the copy curse technique, and based on the thin icebreaker that he just launched, the ability seems to stem from the numerous swords around him. So considering all of that, this plan actually hinges on Yuji. When Yuji hit Sukuna earlier, his hits are like soul-seizing punches. So while Sukuna is busy dealing with a domain-amped Yuta and maybe Rika, Yuji will swing in and try to rip Sukuna's soul away from Megami. Now this is an interesting development. We've known throughout this past month, Yuji has been learning reverse curse technique. He has read Yuki's book on the soul, and he's trained under Kamo and Chozo, and he even seemed to manage switching souls with Kusakabe. So now Yuji's punches have a profound influence on the soul. We have now made it to Yuta and Yuji, our two main characters versus Sukuna. This is the endgame. If they lose here, they have no shot at saving Megami. Forget that, everyone would die anyway if Sukuna wins or the merger starts. Yuta's domain plan is an excellent strategy to try and defeat Sukuna given how much of a counter both Yuta and Yuji can be. Angel's curse technique can quite literally rip his soul out of his body, and Yuji's soul punches will beat Sukuna's soul out of his body. Not to mention Yuta is at the height of his power in his own domain expansion, plus possibly a fully manifested Rika. And Sukuna has not recovered his reverse curse technique output or his domain expansion yet. In fact, Sukuna is forced on the defensive to use Hollow Wicker Basket, and now he's limited him to using half of his arms and mouths. It's almost like a timer has started to see if they can beat Sukuna and save Megami before Sukuna regains all of his strength back. I think at this point, even if they don't succeed, they still should do substantial, real damage to Sukuna. I don't know what anyone else can do if these two lose here. And I hate to say, I really do not think Maki and Hikari have the power or influence to change things if it was left only to them left. However, together with Yuta, I think they have a much better chance, hence why Yuta is remarked as the insurance, and this domain expansion plan is perfect against Sukuna. I also think it's interesting that we haven't seen Maki these past chapters considering her willingness to actually fight Sukuna, but I'm sure that they'll find a way to fit her into this plan. Maki can easily walk through barriers, and with her speed, her stealth, plus the soul split katana, it makes for a deadly combo. Not to mention that's yet another technique that can affect and harm Sukuna's soul. So at the moment, she is still pretty much a wild card, but it looks like only Sukuna and Uraume are left to really deal with as the main antagonist, and it really might just come down to all the heavy hitters of Jujutsu High versus Sukuna. Overall, this particular battle with Yuta versus Sukuna is insanely hype. Yuta completely blew away my expectations, and I hope Yuta of all people will survive this fight versus the King of Curses. We still have a decent bit left to explore in Jujutsu Kaisen, so I hope Yuta gives it all he's got and makes it far in this endgame. So thank you brothers and sisters for watching. Comment below what you think of the current events in the manga and how things are currently going. Is it going to be Kashimo 2.0? Will Yuta and Yuji actually continue to cook? Let me know below. I have a really good feeling about Yuta. Even if he doesn't win, I just expect him to leave his mark. But I will see you amazing people in the next video. Bye-bye.